Super Bowl, they're, for the first time in, I think, 4 years now, the Trump administration is making them take away "end racism," which they had written in the end zone, right? And when
why? It just seems silly. I mean,
to do it or not to do it?
Why get rid of it?
Oh, I could tell you why.
I know, but it's just like you're
because it was stupid to begin with.
Yeah, but
let me ask you, who's it for? And if you're a racist and you see "end racism" in the end zone, you're going to stop being a racist?
But the sentiment is basically like, don't be an asshole.
But I think it's an asshole to nag us during a football game about something that doesn't change anything or any. If I'm not a racist and I see it, it doesn't matter. And if I am a racist, it's going to make me more of a racist.
Like, I think if you write "don't be an asshole" in the end zone, everybody will agree with that.
The problem is, we all think the other guy's an asshole.
And no one thinks.
I saw the Government Accounting Office, that's not the Trump administration, said in the last 20 years, I think it was something like 2.2
It's $3 trillion.
Well, it was a little less than that, but in trillions of improper payments.
Yes.
This is trillions, not billions. What could we have done with that money? In 2023, it was 236 billion of improper payment. So it's not like this does not have to be done. They couldn't put dwarfs because this is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
Bill Maher, Trump defender or last honest liberal? These days, Bill Maher sounds less like a traditional liberal talk show host and more like an unexpected defender of Trump. That's right. The same guy who's spent years tearing into Republicans is now aiming his fire at the left. But here's the twist. Maher isn't blindly backing Trump. He's calling out the media for their relentless, over-the-top obsession with taking him down. From hypocrisy and selective outrage to blatant censorship, Maher's taking the gloves off, and he's not sparing his own side. So what does that make him? A closet MAGA supporter, or one of the last honest voices on the left? Hit play, listen for yourself, and decide.
College kids are doing that we're excusing because they don't know what they're talking about, as if a Yale education isn't better than whatever's happening for these tiki torch IT guys who are in Charlottesville.
Bill Maher unloads on the left. Silence on campus, anti-Semitism is a moral failure. Bill Maher didn't pull any punches in a recent segment, torching the left and what he calls the woke media for their deafening silence on the alarming rise of anti-Semitism across college campuses. While some extreme claims, like chants of "death to the Jews" at Yale, remain unverified, Maher highlighted real and disturbing incidents. At Northeastern University, a pro-Israel counter-protester shockingly shouted, "Kill the Jews!" a moment that led to the arrest of over 100 peaceful demonstrators. Maher also called out a rally in Dearborn, Michigan, where "Death to America" chants rang out, crossing a line he says society should never accept. He didn't stop there. Maher blasted elite institutions like Harvard and the University of Pennsylvania for their weak responses to anti-Semitic episodes, accusing them of sheltering useful idiots and enabling extremist narratives. His message was crystal clear. Turning a blind eye to hate, regardless of politics, isn't just hypocrisy, it's a moral collapse. In a time when partisanship often drowns out principle, Maher is urging his own side to find its voice and take a stand. For him, fighting bigotry isn't a political strategy, it's a basic obligation.
Now that the campus protesters are finally packing up their tents and delousing their hair, it's time for the media to admit that they blew the whole thing way out of proportion. Because as always with media these days, they don't cover what's most important, just what's most fun to watch.
Bill Maher rips legacy media. Professional panic merchants hooked on manufactured outrage. Bill Maher is done playing nice with the legacy media. In a fiery takedown, he skewers the press for morphing into what he calls professional panic merchants, a machine more focused on outrage than truth. Case in point, Trump's half-joking tease about running for a third term. Instead of rolling their eyes and moving on, the media detonated in full hysteria, sounding alarm bells, proclaiming the fall of democracy, and slapping the fascist label on him before you could blink. Suddenly, he wasn't just a bombastic former president, he was Hitler 2.0, the death knell of the Republic, and the main character in every hyperventilating panel discussion on cable news. Meanwhile, real issues, like inflation, grocery prices, and job security, barely get a headline. Buried under layers of theatrical outrage, the real concerns of everyday Americans are drowned out by media-driven melodrama. Maher's had it. He's calling out the press for their addiction to spectacle, their neglect of substance, and their role in fueling division just to chase clicks. And when he lights that fire, it's going to burn hot.
There are 15.2 million college students in the U.S., and 2,300 have been arrested. That's 1/67th of 1%, and half of the ones in New York weren't even students. But we were given the false impression that these protesters are the voice of their generation, having found a cause for which they were willing to go to the tents and to the barricades. Oh, please, these kids are more violent when their team wins a championship. A Harvard youth poll proved it. They asked people 18 to 29 what issues mattered most to them, and out of 16 choices, Palestine came in 15. The vast majority just want to do what they went to college for in the first place, to experiment with being a lesbian.
Or Bill Maher exposes the media hype machine, drama over data, spectacle over substance. Bill Maher isn't just calling out the media, he's dismantling it piece by piece. In a blistering critique, he sets his sights on the usual suspects, MSNBC, CNN, and what he calls the outrage industrial complex. His latest example? The breathless coverage of college campus protests over the Israel-Palestine conflict. If you believe the media, you'd think students nationwide had dropped everything to storm quads, wave flags, and rewrite foreign policy from their dorm rooms. Maher isn't buying it. He cuts through the noise. Most students aren't glued to Al Jazeera or plotting political revolutions. They're buried in midterms, stressing over student debt, figuring out rent, and stretching $20 into a week's worth of ramen. Real life, not radicalism. Maher argues the media is playing the same tired game. Take a loud minority, amplify it until it feels like a national crisis, then act shocked when the public tunes out. It's not journalism. It's theater. Manufactured. Drama at the expense of real issues. And Maher? He's done pretending. Watch as he torches Tara Palmieri for pushing this kind of performative outrage on her show. He's not just pushing back, he's tearing the curtain down and daring the audience to look behind it.
Super Bowl, there, for the first time in, I think, 4 years now, the Trump administration is making them take away end racism, which they had written in the end zone, right? And when
But why? It just seems silly. I mean,
to do it or not to do it?
why get rid of it?
Oh, I could tell you why.
I know, but it's just like you're
Because it was stupid to begin with.
yeah, but it's
Let me ask you, who's it for? And if you're a racist and you see end racism in the end zone, you're going to stop being a racist?
like the sentiment is basically like don't be an asshole.
But I think it's an asshole to nag us during a football game about something that doesn't change anything or any. If I'm not a racist and I see it, it doesn't matter. And if I am a racist, it's going to make me more of a racist.
Like, I think if you write, don't be an asshole in the end zone, everybody will agree with that.
The problem is, we all think the other guy's an asshole.
Bill Maher shreds woke theater. Symbolism without substance is just noise. Bill Maher isn't just calling out media spin. He's ripping the mask off performative wokeness, and he's not pulling punches. In a blistering segment, Maher torched what he calls the left's obsession with hollow virtue signaling, feel-good stunts designed more for optics than outcome. These gestures, he argues, do nothing to solve real problems but give elites a cheap moral high without ever getting their hands dirty. His prime example? The NFL's End Racism slogan painted in the Super Bowl end zones. Maher didn't hold back. Plastering platitudes across a football field, he said, isn't activism, it's branding. Lazy, superficial, and borderline insulting to anyone genuinely fighting for change. The crowd laughed, Tara Palmieri squirmed, and Maher drove the point home. In a world drowning in empty gestures, the difference between progress and posturing has never been clearer. Symbolism without substance is just noise, he said, and the country's sick of the noise.
I saw the Government Accounting Office, that's not the Trump administration, said in the last 20 years, I think it was something like 2.2
It's 3 trillion.
Well, it was a little less than that, but in trillions of improper payments.
Yes.
This is trillions, not billions. What could we have done with that money? In 2023, it was 236 billion of improper payment. So it's not like this does not have to.
Bill Maher exposes media's double standard. This isn't journalism, it's cover-up culture. For Bill Maher, the media's problems go beyond sensationalism or woke pageantry. He's now accusing them of something far more insidious, covering up corruption in plain sight. Maher zeroed in on a jaw-dropping stat: $236 billion in improper payments under the Biden administration. That's not a gaffe. That's billions in taxpayer money misused, misplaced, or simply vanished. And the media's reaction? Dead silence. No outrage, no deep dives, no accountability. He didn't hold back. If Trump had come within sniffing distance of that figure, cable news would have exploded. Emergency broadcasts, fiery panels, countdown clocks, and wall-to-wall indignation. But when it's Biden, the same networks that claim to speak truth to power suddenly forget how to ask questions. For Maher, this is more than bias. It's journalistic malpractice. When the press becomes a partisan shield instead of a watchdog, democracy doesn't just take a hit. It starts to rot from the inside out, and Maher wasn't finished. He turned the spotlight to an even uglier trend, using children as pawns in political theater. For him, that's the lowest form of activism, and a line that should never be crossed.
Becomes promotion. And contrary to current progressive dogma, children aren't miniature adults wise beyond their years. They're morons. They're gullible morons who'll believe anything and just want to please grown-ups. And they don't have any frame of reference. So they normalize whatever's happening. That's why endlessly talking about gender to 6-year-olds isn't just inappropriate. It's what the law would call entrapment, which means enticing people into doing something they wouldn't ordinarily do. For example, after 9/11, there were several cases of overzealous federal agents leading sad losers into terrorist plots, like the undercover FBI agent who got 7 out-of-work dudes in Liberty City, Florida, to sign on to a plot to bomb the Sears Tower in Chicago.
Even Bill Maher takes a stand. Let kids be kids. Stop. Weaponizing childhood. Bill Maher is drawing a line, and it's one more people are starting to agree with. His message? Childhood should be off limits in the culture war. Maher slammed what he sees as a growing trend on the modern left, politicizing every inch of a child's world. From cartoons and movies to video games and toys, nothing is safe from ideological messaging anymore. What used to be about imagination and fun is now a front line for activism, designed to mold young minds before they're old enough to think critically. He's not buying the excuse that it's all in the name of progress. To Maher, real progress means protecting childhood, not turning it into a battleground for adult agendas. Kids shouldn't be drafted into political crusades. They should be allowed to grow, make mistakes, and just be kids. His warning is blunt but timely. Stop weaponizing childhood. Leave politics out of the sandbox, because indoctrination isn't education, and activism doesn't belong in a toy box.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarves want to work.
He's like an honest golden employment opportunity for dwarves.
There's not that many scripts that come down the pike.
No, only 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarf jobs here. But because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right. This is demeaning. And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho.